energies in your life delightfully, or in any way something was closing for you, well, that Jupiter, when it re-enters into Pisces, it will give you a chance to get to be an observer, really, to look back at how heavy, how hard, or beautiful, or whatever your life was in the first part of this year, and you will look back from the perspective of an even wiser, even more mature person who already accomplished all of those dreams, but who also already abandoned the past, who is already healed, who is already standing from a position of having forgiven, having understood, accepted. So the wise and mature person, won't your life truly be a ray of sunshine, a gentle, quiet autumn, beginning of autumn, sunshine, the most nurturing ripening? So imagine that which you lived now in a ripened golden light of gentleness. That is the potential that this energy holds. And as I said, we get to that around 13th of November, when Jupiter retrograde trines the Scorpio planet. Now, some people would say emotional purge, yes. For some people, ultimately, this will be a massive purge, tears will flow like rivers. And even ancestral forgiveness. Something that very quickly popped into my mind. Remember when Black Moon Lilith was in the sign of Pisces? That George Floyd Black Lives Matters? Well, ultimately that happened for ancestral forgiveness to take place. But that was Lilith. Imagine Jupiter doing that. That is when the forgiveness is genuine. Because maybe black and white, this is just an example, not that this is the way it's gonna play out, will hold a big celebration to commemorate something which has nothing to do with race, and it is that other something which dissolved this barrier already. No one cares about color, everyone cares about the celebration and to have fun. So that might be such a beautiful example of that energy. And this is where energetically it's healed already. So you can imagine that that will manifest in physical reality over the next tens of years, because this is that deep. But that celebration, that energy will manifest as celebration. Something that is healed will manifest as something harmonious. A celebration of this or that, or autumn or harvest or whatever. The vibes, the beauty of it. It will be really, really wonderful individually, because collectively speaking, this is truth comes out, revelations, skeletons in the closet, who leads the world, who did what with money, the scorpionic elements. But needless to say, that we must be aware that all of this happens after the eclipse that is just upcoming on the 16th of May, Scorpio total lunar eclipse. So this is a heavier expression, not the skeletons in the closet that we might anticipate right now with our current knowledge and understanding. Let's wait the eclipse, let's see what happens on the world stage, and then try and predict the future, because things will be different. Then on the 20th of December 2022, Jupiter moves back into the sign of Aries. It would have ended its retrograde already. And then a very special moment, which I personally am waiting for, is taking place around on the 10th of March 2023. So this is 2023, when Jupiter meets Chiron in the sky. For a lot of people, this can be a wonderful moment of healing. Wonderful energy, beautiful energy. It all depends on us, on you. But this is the kind of energy, they say, of course the treatment is not working, of course the therapist is not getting through, of course the cleric is not moving you, of course the astrologer is not able to get through to you because you don't want it, because you put obstacles in your own path, etc., etc. Absolutely true. There are moments when all of us are like this, when we do it. There are people who are specialists at this, and they have been doing this all their lives and wondering why the problem never went away. And it can be at that Chiron, the wound and the healing, but the head. When Chiron is in Aries, we have to see and know the wound. The wound is not hidden. Even if it's a psychological traumatic wound, which is a mystery even to Freud himself, by this time we already know it. Empirically, intuitively, spiritually, in whatever way, we know what our problem is. The problem itself is not a mystery. So when Jupiter meets this Chiron, the wounded healer, well, on one hand, either that special moment comes when that which was impossible to heal finally heals because you wanted, because you know why? Because you in one way or another were hell-bent to healing it, and of course it heals. Anything can heal if you're hell-bent to do it. And the opposite can be true. If you really wanted to defeat yourself, if you really wanted to make your wound so big to defeat you, it will defeat you. But I truly believe that this will not be the case. Of anyone watching this channel at least, or anyone who is aware of astrology, that would be impossible. That can only be possible for certain people who are stubborn but on a spirit level, those are special snowflakes. So not any of us, I imagine. For us, quite the opposite. If you worked to heal a wound, even with, then someone cannot walk because they suffered an injury, but they didn't give up for tens of years. Even if that person does not walk bodily, even if it's like a machine's exoskeleton, or even a microchip implanted, or some kind of science miracle that makes them walk, not necessarily the body itself out of sheer miracle, well, that person will still get what they want. It will not matter if walking is walking, if in an acceptable manner, so even if they can do any activity that they want, does it really matter that they walk because of a chip or because the miracle was produced? It is the same for that person that gets the chip because they waited, because they were diligent, and because they done the inner work. Now that they get the chip, it will take them maybe an hour to go and live their dreams immediately. And for the other person who went to the monastery in the mountains, in the cave, the icon of the Virgin Mary that cries, and touched the icon and healed like that, that person also will immediately live their dreams at the moment of their healing. There's no difference between the two, really. That's what Jupiter teaching us. When there is a will, there is a way, yet would we be wise enough to sanctify it so that we don't have to walk over other people? Then we already signed up for a miracle, because Jupiter is the most authentic, how should I even say, the side of the clock. Because Jupiter shows us what the time is, because it governs subjective faith, time itself, time but inside of us. It's not Saturn, the real time. It's time isn't real anyway, but time inside of us when the clock is ticking for us. This is the Jupiter cycle. So when Jupiter says, It's time to heal, it's time to believe, it's time to get out there and just forget all your worries and just be. We are wise to listen to that. And as I said, Jupiter prepared us one way or another to live this moment. Yes, as I said, some people, for example, a very, very stubborn bank manager, someone of Capricornian nature, because Pluto will also be helping Jupiter do this, who just was not capable to listen to the signs that he's wounded and he has this complex, that complex, wounded masculinity or whatever made him a horrible boss, but like a real tyrant. He caused tens of people to get burned out and lose their careers. Of course, for that person, Jupiter will reward them for their wound consuming them. They made it happen. It was their will. Jupiter gives you what you want in the sign of Aries. But for a person who never gave up, they deserve it. They deserve the miracle. They deserve everything because ultimately they worked for it. If you know what I mean. So that is why Jupiter meeting Chiron is so, so important. And on the other hand, when there is a wound, there needs to be a healer, Chiron, the wounded healer. So for some people, this will be the promotion. This will be the moment when they say, I'm stepping into the roles of a healer because I have experience. Like it or not, sometimes life makes you a healer. But when you heal the person and you see your own healing in action, you will say, I can do this. I have, in the worst case scenario, you will say, I have this skill. If it's Reiki, if it's first aid, if it's that, I don't know what kind of course, it doesn't matter what it is, you will say, I have this skill, I can do this. What you do with it is your own business, but you can do this. So for some people, this will be, the calling. They become the doctor, the nurse, the healer, the advisor, whatever that healing is. The helper, the gardener. You heal other people with producing fresh vegetables. Healing can mean so very many ways and different expressions. You become a healer. So I will expect a lot of new healers to just pop up in the neighborhood here and there. That masseur, the new Reiki healer, the new astrologer, new psychologist, new therapist, new whatever. Young people, especially young healers, the new generation. It will be really, really beautiful, and apprenticeships, because you can imagine that a young person who feels this call to become a healer, they don't need to be shattered and wounded themselves to know what it feels like and to get the experience, because they can just go to a already practicing master healer and say, I want to become your apprentice, and they will say, okay, and going back to the basics, nature, the natural way. North Node and Uranus in Taurus. Everything leads back, even spirituality leads back to the basics, to the old ways. Apprenticeships. Just sitting next to your master, but when I say master, not the ego kind of master. Master means a more experienced person who is willing to tolerate you. Sitting next to that person, watching, observing, learning, asking questions. Not the other kind of master where you have to bow to that. No, just the apprentice and that who has experience, the experienced person. Training, basically. But in a natural way. No diploma, no course, no. Just spend time with that person. Just look at what they're doing. And that's it. So, and then we get to April 2023. Because on 21st of April 2023, this Jupiter will meet Aries, Mars' sister, goddess of discord, the rebel, the street fighter, the revolutionary, expanding her symbolism greatly. She is, okay, the square is not very strong, but still squaring Pluto. This will be big action. Big action. How, in which way, we'll see. And also, this will be a strong activation for the United States' economy. What will happen there? And finally, then on the 17th of May 2023, Jupiter leaves the sign of Aries and enters into the sign of Taurus. But that will be another chapter, another horoscope, another times. I do believe that right now all we can do is find ourselves, the true self. This is where the times that we're living right now, if we want to truly do it, but in a real way, this spiritual journey that we're on, forget everything that you were taught at school, forget everything that you were taught. Forget and disbelieve everything that you know from sources outside of yourself. Not necessarily what karma taught you through your parents in a good or bad way, positive or anti-example, but what strictly school taught you, not your teacher, not your school teacher, but the manual, the info itself. Is it true? Can you truly put your hand in fire? This is a saying from my culture. Are you totally sure of yourself that everything that was dished down to your mind, to your mental sphere, that which you were forced to learn the poem, for example, that which you remember even now, but the poem is art and beauty. The poem is just art, a custom. But that which is not necessarily a poem, the grass is green because. How do you know how collective consciousness works? What I'm saying is that this Jupiter in Aries season is so very self-centered, and when I say self, not necessarily the ego, but the self, which is the very core of your existence, and that's not necessarily the mind and who you were educated to believe that you are, but something a bit more. So that will come out, and you will be shocked of how much you truly know from nature. Of genes, genetics is truly information packed inside of you in a real sense, and maybe sometimes you can even decode it. Through sleep patterns changing and being erratics, through the Schumann resonance, shocking your nervous system into thinking that even you are in a parallel reality, or you're living your schizophrenia, or you're totally off, you're irreversibly crazy. Maybe those were moments when you beheld something which was more true than that which you were programmed into believing. So thank you so much for listening, and the only thing I can wish everyone for this Jupiter into Aries season is be the courage that burns in your be the fire that you are, be the courage, do and act and have no bounds, especially when it comes to the head. What you believe, what you think, what you feel, what you don't have to share with anyone, you have ultimate total liberty in that. You're God yourself in that. So make sure you use that power in a good way, in a constructive way, because the head is what steers us ultimately. And when this North Node is done in Taurus, it will retrograde back into Aries. So Taurus is when we have everything that we need for the journey. Aries is the GPS, but this is where all takes us. But that is a different chapter, a different adventure. So thank you again. If you'd like to support me and what I do and my work, you can donate in the PayPal link in the description below. Wishing everyone courage and strength, and just believe in yourself.